fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. Heard on KCOW 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery, and I am Al Warren.
Yes, you are.
I was waiting because you made that smart crack last week. I was like out of the blue. Like, yes, you are. Well, yes, what am I supposed to say? I have to say something.
That's right.
I don't know. Anyway. Well, so, okay, Dave, I got my monkeypox shot.
Excellent.
Why? That's excellent.
Excellent, man.
After that last interview, we did that last week, I was like all paranoid and ran out and said, get me my monkeypox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's unusual. But I got one of the new ones. So the one that goes under the skin.
Okay,
so
yeah.
It stays there for 2 weeks and it absorbs it. So that's it's different. It doesn't go into the muscle.
High tech.
Yeah, high tech.
High tech.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's bigger and they have to get the chip in for Bill Gates.
Oh, yes,
they couldn't get
true,
enough
yeah.
in. They couldn't fit in the COVID and they need it to take control. I was getting too wild. So they decided, well, this guy's just gone too far.
Going to rein you in.
Yeah. Going to take care of this one real quick. Give him a double batch.
That's right.
Anyway. Well, so we just jump right on. We've got a great guest waiting. She's been on before, and this is the return. New book is called Twisty, Tortoise Tussles, Jackrabbit Junction Humorous Mystery Book 6. Now say that 50 times quick. Ann Charles, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I guess I didn't realize they had the monkeypox vaccine out already. I've been writing, so my head's buried, and that was news. I knew it was out there. I just didn't know they had a vaccine for it already.
Yeah, they apparently, you see, we did an interview with a virologist. I hate that word. And he talks about all that sort of stuff. And they've had it in the U.S. for 50 years because they developed it, get this, because they were worried about Russia back in the 80s giving it to Americans. So they developed the vaccine for it and put it in storage for it. They were getting ready for a war like that way. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So they had it. The only thing is, he said it's kind of outdated and a lot of them went bad. But I got my shot in Canada. So Canada's already got them. So.
Jump ahead. That's interesting that we've had it that long, just waiting.
Yeah, it's been sitting. We're ready to get attacked by the monkeys. But the monkeys are all dying. And I mean the band. Hey, we're the monkeys.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Is it too soon? Monkeypox? I guess so. Yeah. I mean, Dave's a big monkey fan. He just went and saw them.
Did.
Last show with that one that died.
Yeah.
Aww. Was it Davey?
No, he died early. It was Mike Nesmith.
Okay.
If I'm saying his name correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. See, he's a real fan. He gets on stage and pretends he's one of the monkeys.
Yeah.
All right.
They have to drag him off stage.
Yeah.
And they haven't had to have people dragged off stage for 40 years.
No, that's true.
And it used to be they drag girls off, but now it's it's a 50-year-old man they're dragging off stage.
They've got security there just waiting for me.
Yeah. It's pretty sad, isn't it?
It's the Dave Patrol.
Yeah. It's like, oh, there's that guy. And then he goes to New Kids on the Block. Same thing. And they're like, oh, no, not him again.
They call me Crime Wave Dave.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, let's get on to the important stuff. So you've decided to do book 6 in this. Now, you call this a humorous fiction or mystery, and because we've been getting a lot of humorous fiction writers lately, we've actually added a whole category to the website now that is called humorous fiction, and I know you'll be placed in there. So what's the trend of humorous fiction? Like, what's going on there? Like, how do you really describe humorous fiction?
Wow, I didn't realize it was now a trend more.
Yeah, we've had like, I think 5 or 6 now.
Yeah.
That we've recorded in the last month, I would say. And it was so much that I was like, well, what am I supposed to put this under? And I contacted the web people and some others, and they just said, well, let's just do one. There seems to be so many.
Yeah.
And it's not really dark noir, so to speak. It's not like this murderous mystery detective, hard-boiled, that sort of thing. It's different. And so I'm thinking, well, so it is in a way, or there's a lot of writers that have agents that are out there doing this. So,
well, I think oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts, and I'll probably forget 3 of them by the time I get done saying what I'm going to say here, and then I'll be like, "What's the question again?"
Yeah.
First of all, okay, this is what has come out of my brain since I started back in the early 2000s, late 1990s. Oh, I hate saying it like that. Humorous, this genre mix with humor in it, and I don't know why, and it really gave me problems at first because I couldn't get in with a lot of the big New York publishers back when I was still trying, because I did mix the genres of mystery and either supernatural or romance, and I wasn't just doing one, which made it a bear for bookshelf space, right? Well, then along comes Amazon and all the other e-retailers, and suddenly the bookshelf, having one thing you fit under doesn't matter as much because you can fit under multiple places. So, my humor in my stories and the mix of genres didn't matter so much anymore, which is a boon for a lot of us that are mixed genre. And I think, that might be part of it, that we're allowed to mix even more now. And readers like the mix too. My stories are character driven, and I think that goes with the humor, that plays along, because it's not about someone's murdered and, the humor in that dead body which would be kind of morbid maybe. It's more about the characters and their reactions in their lives and how they're handling and dealing with the suspense and all that comes with it. So for me, I can find a lot of humor in that, and playing up. How would I react? I'm not a super sleuth. I'm not a diehard, detective. I come across, walk in a room and there's a body and it's some horrible thing. I'm going to scream and, react in a different way than a cop would, or a, detective. So I think it's fun to play with that with everyday people, and then getting involved with trying to figure things out. Why is this person, or if someone's coming after you, why? And there can be so much humor in that too, mixed with suspense and tension and all, the mystery. I think there's more humor coming through now, and this is me just winging it because of what's going on out there in the world. I need more humor to keep me up and keep me going. I need to watch stuff that makes me laugh, or read stuff that makes me laugh, so that I can go out and face, whatever I have to deal with, and hear about all the stuff going on out there in the world that's scary. Humor helps. So maybe that's part of it.
I didn't know there was anything going on in the world. There's something going on out there?
Well, I mean, there's always something going on. I often go back in time and I think about historically, something. How did some of the Westerners feel when the railroad came in? How angry were some of them? How excited were others? It was like a whole new thing. And so I do that when there's a new tech trend coming through, and I feel more like the old Westerners that are like, keep that train out of here, Yeah. I have to think, there's always something for every generation to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but how far do you go with the humor? Like, if you walk in and see the dead body and it's the reaction, maybe you go to bed with them, or?
Oh my gosh. That's a whole different kind of humor. Yeah. No, I really have always enjoyed having characters that do regular things in life. Like in the Jackrabbit series, one of the sisters, the main that starts the series, Claire, she's a jack of all trades, master of nothing. She's gone to college for years. She's in her early 30s. She never figured out which degree. She's jumped from job to job. She's really good at construction because she worked with her grandfather, who's a contractor growing up, and so that is her. She's not a super detective, but she's curious. She loves puzzles, and she can't just let something go when it comes, she comes across it. So that personality flaw, all the different flaws, or, some people might not think of them as flaws, but that goes into making the humor that comes with her being a detective, because she's not your normal everyday, here's the list of how we do the crime scene or whatever. So there can be a lot of humor in normal everyday people reaction to stuff. And I think a lot of readers can relate to that.
I'm wondering why humor. What drew you to writing humorous fiction, and were you inspired by another series or an author? Or
honestly, it's what came out. I tried early on in the mid 90s, to write romance, just pretty much regular, like just contemporary romance, set in the jungle down in Mexico. So I had to add a little bit of adventure to it. And I was really bad at just romance. I loved it. I loved to read it. I grew up reading Stephen King, Louis L'Amour, every romance, those little Harlequin books I could get my hands on. I read all across the board. But I thought I could write a romance. And it turned out I just can't do all that emoting that's required in a lot of romances. There's so much emotion and stuff, and I was not good at that. So I tried for like 3 or 4 books doing that, and humor kept coming on stronger. The more I practiced this and tried this, the humor just kept getting stronger and stronger. I mean, the humor in the very first book I ever wrote by hand on notebook pages is how bad it is. That's the humor when I read it and I go, oh my gosh, that's so bad. But, by book 5, which is the first time I had written Dance of the Winnebagos, and I say that because I went back and did some rewrites before publishing it. The humor was there. It just came out, and it was part of the mix by then. So organic, I guess, if you want to call it that, or this is just me finally getting down to, this is what I'm going to write, and going, oh, okay. All that other stuff, we tried, but here comes the stuff, and there is romance, and there's lots of mystery, and like I said, suspense, and my Deadwood series has supernatural, but there's always humor, because I find humor helps me make it through the day.
Yeah, you figured out who you were as a writer.
Yeah.
Right. I wish I automatically knew the first time I, started writing, but yeah, that's not, I like to take the long, painful, learn, by mistakes route in life, it seems like. So it took me some time.
Yeah, and Stephen King, if you can't get into his romance, then...
I was just looking at, wasn't Rose Madder? He had, isn't that the one where he did some romance in there?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I never read her.
I looked at it on the shelf and I thought, you should read this sometime, maybe just to see what he did.
Well, it's always good. Pick up other people's feelings and how they do things.
Right.
So the main character in this series, did you sort of, because it sounds like you're putting the character through a lot of things to happen to them over a period of time. Do you have to, how do I say this, be careful in how they change? Because your character in book 1 is going to go through the different events in book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each time they go through that, it changes them somewhat. So how they react in book 6 here is going to be different than how they would have reacted in book 2.
Right. Yes. So
yeah.
There's a character arc that goes along with the series arc. And then the story arcs. When I do the behind the scenes work, there's all that I take into account. Okay, so in the series, we're at this point in the series arc. And with this particular character, in her character arc, so that she grows and changes, this is where we're at for her, or for him, So so that the characters aren't static, I do keep track of where they're at and how they've changed. Before I write a new book in a series, I will go back through and read. Maybe I might not read book one anymore, just scan it, because I've read book one in the series, several series, many times. But I will go through the other books and just soak all that up, so that by the time I start, book 6, when I started this, I already had a strong feel, and I knew, okay, for the main character, Claire, here's what we're going to see in her character arc in this book, and then I aim for that. Same with their sister Kate and Veronica, who we go in all their heads. And then I introduced, I was actually the head of a new character in this book, that she's not new to the series, but it's the first time in her head. So I get to start her character arc and take her along a little bit farther. But I really think it's important to keep track of that, because I think it makes them more real. The readers, if you read all the series, boom, 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 you binge it, you're going to see that growth. And you're going to see how the character is changing. And yes, by book 6, the Claire, who was in book 1, she'll comment, but I've almost been killed this many times and then been beat up like this way. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. That's crazy. I'm going to get hurt again. So they do learn and know, just like we do. But it doesn't mean they can't help themselves getting into a little bit of trouble, because that's also human nature, I think, too.
Well, yeah. Now the title, that's an unusual title name. Explain that a little bit.
Twisty, Tortoise Tussles. So this book has 5 different point of views. This is the first time I've done 5. I usually, in the series, average 3. But so there's a lot of plot twisting. And I knew that when I was sitting down to figure out what was going to happen in this story, I was going to be twisting that plot like crazy as we bounce around. And there would be tussles because of the different situations and different things built up in the series already to this, plus the new problem I'm introducing. There's going to be tussles going on throughout. And so I really came up with this title, bounced it around with my husband. We play with words and came up with it. And then I wrote based off that. And I do that a lot, especially with the series. I need that title. It really helps me to feel the theme of the book, and keep that theme in line in my mind when I'm writing each of the different chapters and scenes within the story. And the whole series, you'll see I have these kind of fun, crazy titles because these are fun, crazy mystery, action, adventure, romance, comedy mix-ups.
You just got everything going on. So when you say 5 points of view, how do you keep that going? Are you that author? I can't remember. Do you hear these characters' voices in your heads?
Yeah, actually, I've known 4 of the characters have been going for quite some time. I've done their different voices, so they're strong. It's the 3 sisters, and there's one hero, Mac. His has been there since the book 1, and then the new one I introduced in this one, it's the sheriff's sister. So it was really fun to have a sister of a sheriff who, feeling the small town, small county kind of feel of being the sheriff's sister and not loving that you have to, toe the line. But I can really, when I'm in there and I start, each character, I don't know how to explain it. Just go into their head. You start talking like them on the page. They react a different way than the other one, another one would. And I just started weaving. And I started with this one idea and had a bunch of them there right at the start. And then we kind of break off from that opening. And I guess it's like weaving a rug, weaving something where you keep bringing the strings around and tie them back together. And then at the end, tie them back off, but leave some go out because you get another book coming.
Do any of these characters kind of take on a life of their own and kind of rebel from the plot?
They do. I've often said I'll start and I'll do a big kind of overall plot outline, and it's not real detailed. It's maybe 2 or 3 sentences per point, but time and again, that's more of something saying to my brain, see, we've got a plot outlined, we can do this. And then I'll start, and by the first turning point of the story, I'm often going away I didn't expect. But I've learned over time that's how I write. So it's okay. We'll just follow it and trust in that inner storyteller to tell the story and just go along and keep typing and recording it. So yes, I leave room for me to do that too. When I plot and when I do this, is I don't know what's going to come out. And that's part of the excitement of the story for me as the writer, so that I'm not bored writing it.
Do you take notes along the way?
I do a scene and sequel where each chapter I'll do, and it's a scene where you go from the goal, conflict, and disaster, and that's a scene, and then I'll write the sequel, and maybe the sequel's in a different character's point of view. It's like in one of the sisters' point of view. Or maybe it's a chapter away because something else happens, another scene in it with another character. But I'll keep track of all that, scene and sequel, throughout the whole book, chapter by chapter. And I keep notes in a notepad that's, gets thick and full of a couple books worth, and then I retire that and get another notepad and keep going.
Interesting.
Do you kind of know how far you're going to go with this series?
So when I wrote the first book, Dance of the Winnebagos, I thought I was writing a single title mystery, and I finished it. And a friend at the time said, well, where's book 2? And I said, what are you talking about, book 2? And she said, this is a series. You see what you've done? All the stuff, you've already set the tracks for it. This is a series. What's going to be in book 2? And I went back then, and that shows you, that was 2004, maybe, when that was. I was still figuring it all out, seeing what came out and trying things. And that's when I realized, oh, I do see it now. And went forth from there and brought in there's 3 sisters. The first 3 books is each sister coming in, and then we start just mixing it up with every book. So we're still not too, in the series arc, we're still not too, we're probably getting close to the midpoint of the series arc. So there's several books yet to come. I have some ideas for an ending that I'd like to incorporate, but I like to leave myself room for what might come in between, and be fun to explore. So I don't have a set, I'm going to go 15 books out and then I'll stop. It's more, let's see how the story goes. And when I feel like wrapping up, then we'll start wrapping up.
Wow. That's interesting. So it's almost like you don't have any of this outlined, in a sense that you have no real big control over the big picture.
Well, it sounds crazy, but with character-driven stories, I often feel like there is something. They are part of this, what will happen, how things will go. It's driven on that, depending on that character as it comes out. And I know it all sounds crazy, and I'm sure there's some more left brain authors out there and people going, come on, nail it down. You can do this, and you should do this. But I kind of find myself, I've always been a even balance whenever I've done those crazy tests, are you right brain or left brain? I'm always in the middle. So I just kind of, my left brain will plot and do all this stuff, and then the right brain steps in and goes, get that crap out of here. This is what we're doing. And onward we go.
Well, at least you have a brain.
Well,
mine doesn't come out any. But do you ever sometimes feel like you're not in charge? You don't drive while you're going through this cycle.
No. I often, I really, by the time I come to the end of a story, I first of all, anyone who's ever written, I write about 125K, 130K books, so they're longer. There'll be things that one of the first draft readers says, when so-and-so did this, it was really great. And I'll think, first of all, was that in this book? By the time you get to the end, or I get to the end, I can't always I don't have detailed memories of what all has happened because it's like life. Do you remember what you ate 3 days ago? That's kind of how it feels. The story just rolls out. And then, and I trust in that storytelling voice to tell the story. And then when I go back, and I'll start editing, that's when I'm double checking everything's there. And, at one point we were moving from Washington to Arizona when I was writing a book, and I was hurrying to get done before we moved. And we got down to Arizona, and I had just finished, and I had a chance to breathe and read it again. And I was like, wow, it really came out. It worked. Because, life had just muddled everything up, but yet that storytelling voice, it still told the story like it should. So, yeah, I do feel like, we're not always 100% in control. You're relying on some other part of your mind to tell the story and keep track of that stuff while you keep doing your day-to-day life and remember to shower and brush your teeth, which sometimes I don't remember. So storyteller's probably better than the regular mind at keeping track of stuff.
Right. Well, and you're not waking up in the middle of the night with the shovel in your hand or anything like that. No. Okay. No. Well, but I have to say that with the, you say it's just kind of like life happens, and with your characters and with the stories, you're character driven and things will happen to them and stuff. Do you think about what you're going to put them through before you actually put them through it? Like, are you sitting there and kind of go, well, this is what needs to happen, and then you throw it at them and see what happens? Is that kind of the case, or is this, and are these things that you deal with within your own life as well? Is this personal?
Well, not a lot of that. I mean, they have some crazy stuff, for example, in Jackrabbit. And in the Deadwood Mystery series and Deadwood Undertaker series, we're dealing with a lot of supernatural, too. Which, wow, I hope some of that never happens to me. That would just freak me right out. But, when I plot at the beginning, like I told you, I start with that. My left brain does this really, look at this beautiful plot we've outlined for you. I'm thinking of some ideas of what I might have them go through. But when I do that chapter, scene and sequel, as I write, that's when I truly brainstorm in more detail, get down in there, and I'll have an idea of, hey, what if this happens? And then how will we react to that? And then there are times when I'm writing what I think is going to happen per scene and sequel, and someone will say something or do something that just came out of left field and turns it. And I'll pause and think, do we really want to take that left turn? And sometimes it's like, no, bring it back. But other times it's like, yeah, let's explore that. That could be really fun. And off we go. And I know when I'm chuckling as I type that I've kind of hit what I think is the humor that I'm aiming for, because it's making me laugh just typing the lines,
What do you hope someone gets out of the book when they pick it up then? Like, are you hoping for something, or is it just entertainment and have a good time?
That's part of it. I mean, I tell people I don't want you to read the books and then expect that you'll go, get rid of 3/4 of the books out of your bookshelf and then clean your house and get rid of a bunch of stuff. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to make you, believe in this, some super power out there in space that's controlling everything, or the universe. I'm trying to give you an escape into something fun when your life is in dire need of it, when you're struggling with stress from work, or an ill parent or child or spouse, or the TV, what's coming off the TV is stressing you out. And you just want to get away, and you want to have some laughter, and you want to kind of find your happy place. That's what I'm aiming to help you with, to give you something to give you that relief and then send you back out. Okay, you've had this, we've laughed, we had a good time. Now get back out there and face that, and let's keep going forward. And here's another book to keep for when you need it,
Right.
Or that's more my goal.
Well, I'm wondering, they say for like stand-up comedians and to land a joke that you need to have comedic timing. Do you feel there's a necessity for, I guess, comedic timing or flow of some kind in the writing of prose fiction to make the humor land?
I had never really thought of it like that until another author I know who writes really wonderful, humorous stories was talking to me, and she said, you and I, we write a lot of humor. She'd read my book, I'd read hers, and I said, yeah. And she goes, do you realize how hard that is? And I said, well, not until you just made me think about it. So there is a timing, and there's, when I write one of the scenes that is more laugh out loud that I'm aiming for, I will write it, and then I'll go back and I'll reread and go back through reading it aloud and edit and keep doing it till I hit that cadence and the pacing and everything I need to make that joke land, in my opinion. And on a side note, what's really interesting is if you have your book done as an audiobook, it's so important that you find a narrator that matches your sense of humor and gets you. Because if she or he doesn't land, if they read it wrong, that falls flat as a cake, even if it's funny on the page. So hooking up with a narrator, and my narrator in this series is Lisa Larson, and we've grown a lot together over the years. And boy, Lisa gets me so well. When she sends me the chapters in advance to listen to and make sure, everything sounds great, she makes me laugh reading the lines that I wrote. And that's it. I'll be like, oh, she's so funny. And then you go, oh, wait, I wrote that. Or, another funny thing you do with an audiobook is you're listening and you say the next line as if you're so smart. Oh, she's going to say this. And she says it. And you're like, right? I knew she was going to say that. And you're like, you dummy, you wrote that thing, But that's a good narrator to me because they've taken me out of the fact that I did write that story or that joke. And I'm just listening then.
Out of all the books you've had published and put out, and you've done quite a few, how many have you done now?
Well, including the 4 with my husband, Sam Lucky, I think we're at 34 stories now published. And that's not, that's a lot to some, but to some, there's authors that, I'm on book 160, and I don't think I'm going to hit that before I keel over. I just don't write that fast.
Well, that's still quite a few. Like that's a lot of writing because like you were saying, you do, 100K plus a book, right? So it's doing a lot of writing, right?
Yeah, it takes me 4 to 6 months to get a book written through the editing process, which takes over a month for me, and then release. So it's a bit of a process for me, and I wish I could go faster just because readers are voracious, and that's wonderful, but I keep getting distracted with my life and my family and trips to places to visit family and people. It's very distracting.
Well, how rude. What do you think you're doing?
What am I doing? I'm supposed to be chained, and I keep unchaining from the computer. And we go have fun. And then I go, oops, I'm supposed to be back chained to the computer. So.
Oops, I did it again.
Did it again.
You got to stop that. Stop it. Get to work.
Stay in your cave or your dungeon and keep going.
Yeah, keep working.
Yes.
So what do you, for me, okay, I've got 30 books, but when I do books, each time I do a book, I seem to learn something. I think I've become a better writer, but I don't know. But I think I do. And some things become better and easier, and then new things open up. So I think in essence, I'm saying that though I get through a book, I feel like it's changed me, but it's also given me more to do on the next book. Right. Do you find the same thing?
I do, and I think that's, for me, that's part of the challenge in this author gig, is each book I have to grow, or I fear that readers will feel that on the page, that I'm becoming stagnant. So, like Twisty, Tortoise Tussles, it's the first time, like I said, I've had 5 point of views running and twisting them together and making this like a twister coming through. That was, at first I thought, boy, can I do this? This is going to be tough. This is going to take a lot of work to keep track of it, bring it around, tie it, bring it, twist it some more. Can I do it? And I just thought, I got to try. And went in and just started working it. And when it was all done and I finished, and I thought, whew, that was a real exercise. That was fun. It was challenging. Now what? What's the next challenge I want to try to do? So yes, like you, I think it's a constant work to challenge ourselves and keep growing and improving. You know, back when you first started the first 5 books, you probably never thought of some of the details that you think of, structural details that you do maybe when you're writing, you know, book 10 or book 15. It just keeps changing because it's like you keep zeroing in, you know, finer and finer details that you can see clearer, because I think you're better at all the other stuff around it. So that's all natural.
Yeah, but you become more aware of certain things.
Right. And I don't plan to ever reach, I don't think I will ever reach where I think, oh, this is it. This is the top. I think it's forever changing and growing and experimenting, you know, to make a story interesting.
Well, you know, you mentioned trips, and Al mentioned learning, and it just made me think that, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you started writing about Arizona before you traveled there. Am that correct? Before you lived there?
Before I lived here. Right. I had actually lived here up in Flagstaff, not down in the desert where that series is set, and then moved up to Seattle, and then I started the series about Arizona because I missed it so much. And so I wanted to take myself back down there. And we had driven through some of this, you know, where the big RV parks are and some of that down there. So I was familiar with Tucson and that area. But I hadn't lived there, you know, for any, and like I said, I was way up in Flagstaff in the mountains. But yeah, I really missed Arizona, and I wanted to write this series about a Winnebago, you know, or an RV park in the desert. And that's kind of what got it started.
Is there anything about Arizona that, you know, most people outside of Arizona get wrong?
Well, I think a lot of people, when we were going to move down here, a lot of people would say, from Seattle, mind you, beautiful green mountainous Seattle, I can't believe you're moving to the flat desert. And I would say, well, first of all, we're moving to Prescott, which is a mile high up in the mountains. It's not quite Flagstaff, where I lived, where there's, you know, then you're 7,000 feet up there. So I don't think a lot of people realize there are 6, biomes in Arizona, meaning you have the low desert, you have mid-range, you know, chaparral areas, you have mountains like here in Prescott with certain kind of trees and stuff. And then you have the really alpine mountain kind of thing up in Flagstaff where they're, you know, way up there. I don't think people realize there's these sky islands, they call them, that are mountains and all this greenery. So many people hear Arizona and think flat desert saguaro. Yeah. You know, that's what's Arizona. And it's not. It's just a beautiful mix of landscapes, you know, and diversity. And I've always really enjoyed that about it. So part of, you know, and I do have the story set down in the desert, so people are still getting that. But I like to include all the different type of cacti. And some of that, like, you know, book 5 is in cahoots with the prickly pear posse. So right there in the title, we've got that cactus name.
What point can you stop a book? Like, you know how you're writing and you're putting it together and you're 4 months into it. Is there a point that you draw a line at and say, that's it? I can't, you know, I'm not going to write anymore and it'll pick up in the next book in the series? Or like, how do you draw that line?
Each book, even though they're part of a series, and it's an ongoing series with plot lines that go sometimes over multiple books, but each book has one story question that gets answered. Like, will so-and-so figure out who murdered, you know, Joe Blow? And then that story will be all about that story question and answering that question by the end. So it feels like we've completed this, you know, season of the series. Put it aside, but there's more to come. You know, there's the hints of we still don't know the answer to this yet, and something's coming. We can tell with, the readers, so many readers who read my books quickly learn if I mention a character's name, if I, little trails or hints I'll give, that means we're coming back and we're going to revisit this, and it's going to probably be in a future story. And so it's exciting for me and them. It's like a game we play, Here's a little tidbit. Do you catch it? Oh, I caught this, And it makes it more fun, I think, for me as an author to interact that way with them.
Do you ever worry about, well, let's just say this, the outside world's always changing, and you're out there taking trips and partying and that all the time. But do you ever, when you're sitting down to write one of the stories, do you ever try to stay in line with what's going on outside? And I mean that in the way of like, okay, how do we say, political correctness, or because for myself, I tend to be a little bit humorous, and especially on the show, and I'll tend to say things that sometimes may not be the most popular things, because I'm just looking at humor. I'm not looking to hurt anybody.
Right.
But the world tends to be going a different direction with that and that. So I'd imagine with your stories, there's and being humorous, there's a lot of stuff that may not be the most correct for the time as it goes, because you could write something now, something you wrote last year even, and it's different now.
Oh yes, and I'm a big bumbler. Did I say something wrong? One of those people that goes, "What did I say? What did I say wrong? Trying to keep up with, changes. My kids are high schoolers now, and a lot of times they'll go, "Mom, you can't say," and it's not even a really bad thing that was ever, in this 80s, 90s, something we even thought about, and I'll go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was a thing. I'm it's changing so fast."
Yeah.
So I have a first draft crew of wonderful friends, family, readers, and there's about 10 to 12 of them that read the first chapter by chapter as I write, because I write a chapter by chapter. When I finish the book, it'll be done. Because I've spent so much time on each chapter, that all I have to do is a few changes throughout, and then we're ready to go to the editor. That's just the way my mind works. But anyway, they will often, if they catch something, if I can't really have that, that's a little bit offensive for a certain, religion or a certain this, they'll let me know, as well as I have a beta crew. And that's anywhere from 25 to 45, depending on the book and how much time I have to go through beta edits. That is amazing. And they will go, I don't know if you can, say this anymore without causing a little ruffle, or get people upset. And so I'll debate then. Well, what am I trying to do with this story? Am I trying to, push the boundaries on this? Am I trying to just entertain? What do I want to do here? So those guys act as my filters. They act as, someone that says, wait a second, take a second look at this. And they know that. They know that's their job. So they're incredibly, wonderfully nitpicky. And in the end, that helps me to, us to release this story that's polished and ready to go with, hopefully not hitting on, offending people, or at least offending, seeing its humor and not going the other way. That doesn't mean I haven't published a thing or two where it's like I've had somebody write me and go, oh, I don't know if that's, I feel how I feel about that. Yeah. I think with humor, we're going to run into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if, something I'm thinking about now even more is, I mean, you're down in the hotbed, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And so if you're being too political correct, are you going to get it the other way? Because you're in a humorous place. Right. So you don't want a sound filter. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a weird world.
In the first book in this series, Dance of the Winnebagos, okay, the whole concept is Claire. She's down there with her grandfather, who's in his late 60s, early 70s, and his two army vet buddies. They're meeting up with their RVs, and they've already lined up a bunch of hot babes to come because they want to find wives. They're tired of being bachelors after all. They want a wife. So they've lined up. It's like the dating game where we've got them coming through. And they're not the most politically correct, but they're having a good time, and the women are having a good time. It's not like, something where women would feel like, oh, that makes me nervous. It's more women are very aggressive on their own right in that story, what's going on. And Claire is stuck in the middle in her, mid-30s, watching her grandfather because her mom doesn't want him to come home with a gold digger. And the guys don't want her there. They're smoking, drinking, having a good time, eating chili con carne for breakfast. I mean, it's not wonderful time for a woman to be hanging out with her grandfather down there. But she gets into the whole finding a human leg bone and this whole, mystery that goes on. But still, my point is, there's a lot of stuff in that, first story that it's not, I tell people it's rated R. It's not like, orgies like that. I just mean the language and the things that are going on. And be prepared for that. I'm not a cozy mystery writer. Hats off to those who are, but I'm not. I'm edgy. There's likely to be language, sexual situations, sex on the page, maybe one scene. Short. I don't go into lots of romance details, but, that's what these stories are, because I write for adults. And I've had some people say, oh, I think you could write these wonderfully funny children's books or, junior high level books. And I say, I don't think so. I don't think my brain goes that way. I'm sorry. Hats off to all those authors that are doing that. They do a wonderful job. That's not where my voice goes. It's a dirty old man in there sometime. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Dave. It's just like, wow. So did you ever, is there any book you ever read, go back, like maybe book 1 or something or 2 of the series and kind of go, oh, I wish I could rewrite this?
Oh man, anyone who's written, no, you've got to do it. I mean, you go back to those earlier books and you wince a little going, oh, I could have done that better. That's telling right there. I should have shown that, oh, I used that gesture 3 too many times there, and it's just stick it out now like a sore thumb. So yeah, I do, but I've heard over and over the wisdom of don't go back and try to polish that first book, because if you did a decent job, at least there's a natural spark to it, and let that be. And that's how it all came to be. And then your series grows, your writing improves, your readers go along, and hopefully they keep going, man, it just keeps getting better because you're getting better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I still get that too, and even someone will say something good about a book that you wrote a while ago, and you're like, ooh. You're waiting for the hammer to come down.
Exactly.
It's not always like, oh my God, oh, I was so bad.
You wince a little. You're wincing the whole time they're talking. You're just waiting for that, that quick shiv in the ribs or something,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're like, oh, it was so good. It's like, oh my God, it's terrible. What are you talking about?
Yes.
Oh, but I guess that'll just never change.
Yeah, I mean that's where that's where I started. That was who I was then as an author. And hopefully if you enjoy the stories, and mainly if you share my sense of humor, then you'll see how things change and grow, and it'll, keep the roller coaster, kind of keep getting faster and faster and more fun and exciting.
Yeah. And it's all about that. I think people should be able to write and do whatever they want. And it's just like anything. If you don't like it, then you don't buy it. You stay away from it. It is what it is. I can't stand this trying to alter things. It is what it is. You don't like that kind of humor? Go somewhere else.
Well, I often will tell new readers that say, oh, I loved it. And I'll say, we share a sense of humor. I love finding people that share a sense of humor with me. I think that's important in life. You find those people you can laugh with and have a great time with, and it helps, especially us authors who we sit, so much of what we do is alone.
Yeah.
And our friends are the characters on the page a lot of times, which sounds crazy, but...
Yeah, well, it's true. And my dog.
And your dog, yeah. Our kids, because my husband and I both write, and we write the series, and they'll say, we'll be talking about someone, and they'll kind of inch up. Is this a character or is this a real person? So, or they'll get into it thinking, oh, it's a real, it's a character or something. We had this the other day, and I said, oh, no, we're talking about Alex off Ice Road Truckers.
Yeah.
My daughter just throws up her hands like, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, well.
So he's a character, but officially he's a human in real. So it's a real mix-up there.
Yeah, it's just one big blur. Come on, then it's over. Wow, you're always interesting. Now, so do you do social media? Do you do? Where do people find Ann Charles?
I do. To go for the books and all the info on like the Deadwood Fan Party, our 10th annual's coming up this October. You can go to my website and you'll find, whether the books page or the blog page where I'll have information. I put all the interviews in the blogs page, showing different stuff. So if you really want to kill a weekend with spending time listening to Ann's voice over and over, you can find different interviews and just go to town, have a good time with me. Otherwise, Facebook, Instagram, I do some photography as well as my cats. We have 4 cats, so I like to hang with them. But I'm also trying TikTok. I'm just tiptoeing out there right now. I don't sing and dance well, so it's hard for me to get into.
Oh, TikTok's dangerous. Look out.
So, and I'm a little bit on Twitter and a little bit on something else. Pinterest, my sister-in-law has helped me make some really fun boards, Pinterest boards of all the different characters and different things. So that's kind of fun, too, if you're into the visual stuff.
Yeah, it's all good. And what is your website?
AnnCharles.com. So AnnCharles.com. There's no E in Ann.
Perfect. Of course, we'll have that up, too, so people can find you. And just do one click, and Ann comes up, and you can listen to her and look at her. And
throw popcorn at me.
Yeah. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. Anyway. Well, it's certainly been a great conversation. You're always good to talk to. Now, of course, we were promoting your new book called Twisty, Tortoise Tussles, and that's Jack Rabbit Junction humorous mystery book number 6. Oh, mouthful.
Say it 50 times, really fast.
Really well. I'll say Dave. Go for it. Well, Ann Charles, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me back. It's so much fun talking to you.
Thanks, Ann.
Tired of wasting time trying to decide what to watch on your streaming service? Go to our website and look for the Martino movie reviews. You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me? Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.